All right, I think we are live. Before everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Andrew Bolton. I'm the SVP of Partnerships at Knotch, and I'm joined by three of my most favorite partners, clients, friends, and we were just catching up on how long it's been since we've seen each other in person. Paige was just mentioning I was supposed to go visit her in Arkansas, I think like the week before everything got closed down. Angela lives literally 2 miles away from me, so we have no excuse that we haven't seen each other in a while. And Jamie, I don't know where you live, but we have to catch up sometime soon. So this panel is all about content measurement. I'm really excited to have you guys because you all approach content in slightly different ways and in slightly different functions. And I think you're all going to have really good points of view for the audience. For quick introductions, for those of you who don't know who these ladies are, first we've got Paige Fadden, who's the Director of Digital Strategy and Brand Engagement on the Corporate Affairs team at Walmart. We've got Jamie Rue, who's the Executive Director and Head of Digital Content Strategy at JP Morgan, the private bank. And finally, we have Angela Matusik, who's the Head of Corporate Brand, Content, and Creative at HP. So welcome all, and thanks for joining. So thank you. The first question I wanted to kick off with, I think, the previous panels have been talking very macro level around the world, leadership, so on and so forth. I want to bring it down a little bit to kind of the things that you guys are dealing with most on the day-to-day. And that's really like how the role of content or how generally how you approach content has changed and shifted in the past 4 months. And going a step further, do you think those changes are going to persist, evolve, revert back to the way they were? I think that's kind of questions a lot of people that in the content field are asking themselves. So, Angela, why don't you kick it off and go from there?
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's nice to see everybody. And hello to everybody out there listening in your homes. Yes, I think the way we have approached content changed dramatically. In some ways, it was nice because I felt like I was actually able to lean into my days as a journalist and in the newsroom because we suddenly had to, pivot, shift, rethink, get some things up really quickly. And I think over the past 4 months, from like the initial reaction when we started changing our strategy in March to now, as we're looking ahead through the rest of the year, is I feel as though we can't engage in long-term content planning at the moment. We are trying to stay as nimble as possible. I think, especially we were rolling along with the COVID reactions and providing support and inspiration and ideas around that. And then the Black Lives Matter movement happened. It's not a movement, a revolution, overdue. And I think we've pivoted a little bit again, where we've put things on pause. And I think I think the world that we're living in is not going to stabilize anytime in the next 6 months. We have a big election coming up. There's lots of uncertainties around the health of the world. So I think the biggest way we have shifted is to just try not to plan and to have everything that we can have at our fingertips to allow us to react and to create in a little bit more of a nimble fashion and to seize opportunities when we get them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And how about you, Jamie? Frank Cooper from BlackRock was just kind of mentioning some of the things that his organization's been going through. JP Morgan, obviously, a very similar role in the world. How have you guys been adapting and adjusting, and how do you think that is going to either persist or change as we move forward?
Yeah, well, I loved what he had to say about purpose, and it definitely feels like the past 4 months have been all about purpose and sticking with your purpose and understanding what that is in many ways. For us, we're in the advice business. And so that's our product. And the way we distribute our product is through our content. So content is really like at the core of the way we service our clients and the way we try to build trust with prospects. And so for the past 4 months, I think the approach that we've taken has been very similar to the approach we've always taken with content, which is just to really put our clients' needs at the center of everything we're putting out. But I would say what felt different and what was different, besides the fact that we just went into overdrive and then we were producing probably like 4 times the velocity of content that we had been doing previously, was that there was definitely a mood and a great leveler with the pandemic and all these other things that were happening, where there was this sense of humanity that started to infuse itself into things. And we felt like the trying to be in touch with what was needed. I mean, it's something that we always try to do from a content perspective, right? You're always trying to think about what are the needs that we're meeting, what are the questions that we're answering, and under different circumstances, that could be like a very complicated exercise. You're analyzing data, you're looking for insights, you're trying to, meet people where they are. And in this time, it felt like the fog had lifted in a sense, and it was very clear that what we had to do. And it was very clear the types of advice and the type of content that we needed to put out. And it's just a matter of going through the very stressful and strainful motions of getting it out there to our audience. And so that was an interesting thing to experience. We knew what we had to say. We knew the questions that needed to be answered. There was this clarity that helped really drive what we were doing, because the sentiment of the people that we were serving was very obvious. Like the hot topics that were in the news and the questions that people had top of mind were the things that we were front and center with. I think that made our job a little bit easier during a difficult time. And what I hope that persists now that at least the pandemic feels like it's winding down, while other very dynamic things are still ramping up and continuing. But I hope what persists is this the very closeness that you feel with what the needs are, and being super duper in tune and with what you need to be, the messaging and the content that you need to be putting out, whether it's coming from the data that you're analyzing or just being very in tune with what's happening in the news. When it's not like a newsy period, the way we've been experiencing, how can we still make sure that we're in lockstep with the very top of mind, at the fingertip needs of the folks we're trying to serve and we're trying to reach? And how can we make sure that we're meeting their needs with our content and our advice?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Paige, Jamie mentioned that she is in the advice business. And I feel that you guys, in a way, became part of being in the advice business because you were out there trying to educate people, whether it was associates or customers, through the pandemic. Since I've known you, there's always something that you're working on. Yeah. There's always something you're having to put a point of view out about. That is the point of corporate affairs. How have you guys adjusted or adapted, or is this just kind of normal for you, but just at another level?
Now, I've been with Walmart for 8 years, and corporate affairs, we've always been kind of charged with telling the Walmart story as it relates to associate opportunity, serving our customers, and supporting the communities in which we operate. And that didn't change, but what we talked about and who we talked to changed remarkably, exponentially during this time. We always kind of told the Walmart story by trying to humanize everything that's happening in our stores through the lens of our associates, our 1.4 million associates in the US, or the organizations which we support through local and national giving, and the services we provide to our customers to help them save time and live better. And it went from kind of these human stories to straight utility. When are our stores open? How do we shop? Do we have to wear masks? I went to go look back when you reached out to me, because I honestly couldn't remember how this all started. We've produced so much content over the last 4 months, and it was March 19th, and our first story we put out was on special associate bonuses and rolling out our Q1 store associate bonuses early. And that's where it all started. And from then the floodgates opened, and it was protecting fair prices, senior shopping hours, changes to shopping, more bonuses, more changes to shopping. And then, we got into the operations of rolling out testing centers in our parking lots, and that continues today. I've never worked with a team that's produced so much content as we have in the past 4 months. But again, it still kind of ladders up to those 3 pillars. It was just very different. And for me and our team, we kind of focus on a more elite audience: media, key opinion leaders, ESG investors, and investors. And we were just reaching broad audiences because people just needed to know the ins and outs of shopping, because Walmart became essential, and we had to find a way to get that information out quickly. So we had to be very, very agile. I will tell you, the strategy and planning team had set up a scrum, well in advance of this. Never has it ever been more valuable. And because it was such a well-oiled machine, it has become the most valuable meeting that we have on a daily basis, more so than ever before.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sentiment of content people never working harder than they have is shared among pretty much all of our clients and all the people that we work with. And so that's that. I think that may up the appreciation level of the content teams within organizations. You mentioned something about kind of going to straight utility as content goes, and that's something that when we think about content marketing and corporate communications, there's a lot of upper funnel content that can be very branding, awareness, perception-based type content. Then there's the mid funnel, which is utility. It's like providing education, providing value to people. And then the lower funnel, which is obviously much more like product related. I think across the board, everything went very middle funnel. Like everyone was trying to provide utility. I guess during this time, and also kind of typically, how do you kind of think about your content and where it sits in different parts of the customer journey? And then Paige, maybe just start touching on a little bit about how you think about measuring those different parts of the customer journey or those different parts of the funnel and like the content against those KPIs.
Yeah, so we, particularly in corporate affairs, we have our target audiences, and we use a number of tools to kind of measure how our content's performing. Obviously, we use Knotch, and we use that across all of our own channels. And I'll tell you that that utility content, that informational content, was getting 10 to upwards of 100% more engagement. On average, our content on our corporate channels would probably receive about 2,000 to 6,000 views per piece of content, and we were upwards in about 150,000 views per article over the last few months. And the way we measure our corporate content is through sentiment. We really want to know how people are viewing the content. And I'd say up until the middle of the pandemic, so I'd say 2 months into the pandemic, we've always asked an NPS question, how likely are you to recommend Walmart as a place to shop? And we switched to how informative is this content, because the question didn't make sense. And I would tell you, we went from kind of low 60s in positive sentiment to high 60s to mid 70s, sometimes upwards of 85% for that informational content. And that was really telling to us that, adjusting our content to what people were wanting to hear made a tremendous difference in the way we developed content.
Yeah, for sure. You want to know, did the content do the job that it was supposed to? And sometimes that isn't an NPS, very upper funnel thing. It's literally am I delivering value to you? Yeah. Jamie, I know you, obviously, every piece of content you put out there is that, advice, and being in the advice business is about utility and driving that. What are some of the things that you look at as far as where different content assets might kind of sit within a customer journey and how you measure them?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. The bulk of what we typically do and the bread and butter of our content that we produce for our clients and for prospect purposes sits right in the middle of that funnel. It's an informational, it's commentary about markets, it's advice about investing, it's advice about estate planning, taxes sometimes. During the pandemic, it was some information about PPP and the CARES Act and all of those types of things that were really top of mind, that were confusing and people really needed some explanation about. And so we did a very similar exercise that Paige did, and we were asking questions about how informative was this to you. So we wanted to, take some pulse on were we talking about the right things? Were we offering the right level of detail? And Knotch was pretty new for us, so we were using Knotch to try to get some of this sentiment data. And
I think we actually launched at the very beginning of this with you guys. So it was like literally together.
We definitely did. We were like taking our time doing this launch, and then all of a sudden COVID hit and we started ramping up our content, and we're like, okay, we're in. And so it was a perfect timing because we got some great data on this very important, content effort that we were in the middle of. And it was very eye-opening. And for certain topics, we learned that we were not providing enough information. And for other topics, our information was too complex. And so we were able to really adjust and take that in real time and have some learnings about it. We were also really intrigued to look at, all of the metrics in aggregate, because prior to using a system like Knotch, where you're getting things about sentiment and time on page and all those things, we were really relying way too heavily on stuff like page views or like email open or things like that, which, as we all know, don't really tell the full story. So being able to take that and couple it with a lot deeper metrics around sentiment, percentage of positive responses, the details around more negative responses and the proportions there, how long were people spending on the page, were they clicking through on the CTAs, that really painted a much fuller picture for us. And we were able to make some interesting decisions on, how we were going to be continuing from there, and stuff that we'll definitely be taking with us in the future post-pandemic, for sure. So there were some really good insights, very specifically about the topics and headlines and the tone. We were talking earlier about purpose and humanity, and empathy was a topic on some of the earlier panels. And we did find that some of those articles that were written with an empathetic tone or a reassuring tone, things like, should I be worried about the stock market? Those types of things really resonated with people. And
what's the answer to that? Should I be worried about the stock market? Everything's good.
I'm not going to tell you not to worry, and I'm not going to tell you to worry, but I have a great article for you to read.
Thank you. Send it over. Put it in the chat. How about you, Angela? I think you've been doing some really interesting work. I use post-COVID loosely because, who knows what is actually post, but you've been doing some really interesting, some really beautiful work coming out of kind of like the peak, let's call it. How, and this is actually a question in the chat too, how have you adapted to the faster turnaround for the ask for content, but still maintaining that journalistic quality that a lot of your work has?
Well, first, I would say that we are very comfortable at the big, wide top of our funnel. So that immediately means that our stories and that we're producing are very much about thought leadership and reputation. And when the world shifted in March, luckily, there were many, many topics that were just a natural fit for what we discuss at HP. I mean, people were on our laptops right now. Hopefully, some of you are using HP equipment to talk to us. And the way people are learning, the way people are visiting their doctors, like everything just changed. But technology was such a core of everything. So, the base level of like what we discuss and how we discuss it, our point of view, our voice and tone didn't change. And all of the things that Paige and Jamie said about the way we look at content and the way it's being measured after we publish it to see the sentiment, and we can compare it to pre-COVID, post-COVID, how it does comparing to our best stories, that matters. But I would also like to give a shout out to a couple of our media partners who I found have been very useful to us through this time. We work with T-Brand Studios from the New York Times, and we've been working with Bloomberg Green, which is like a new division of Bloomberg. And both of them have been providing us insights to their audiences during this time. And I think that when it comes to even, when I say we're doing things quickly, quickly in my world is, 5 weeks out or 6 weeks out. We don't often do things, overnight, but we are looking at trends and what are people clicking on in these other platforms. And of course, Jamie, like I can tell you that their tech decision makers are very interested in invest 2 times 2.9 times more interested in investment content than anybody else, or, you know, like we can see like what it is that people are interested in. And then we find like these intersections for us as a technology leader with a great purpose where we're, you know, we're doing amazing work in the environment. I think that the hardest thing that we had to do when all this happened was we had a lot of stuff in the pipeline that was about sustainability, fighting climate change, because we were gearing up towards Earth Day, and we do such great work in that. But we sort of, you know, we had to acknowledge that the concerns of the world were shifting. And so we didn't, we just sort of put some of that on hold. And I'm happy to say that we're starting to roll that back out. And we're seeing that the sentiments on those types of stories are picking up again. And the interest in other topics besides COVID is starting to grow. But I really think you have to have your ear to the ground, and you have to be able to understand what the audience wants, not just within your walls, but if you can check some other sources as well, it's very, very helpful.
Yep, for sure. Paige, you're kind of the opposite, where Angela's 5 weeks, you're 5 hours maybe,
Yeah.
on a good day. Like, what are some of the signals that you're looking at, or you mentioned kind of like the Scrum room that your team put together? Like, what are some of the signals that you're looking at to make sure that you are putting the correct content out there and then iterating and improving?
I think during this time, what's been most important is the cross-functional collaboration. I'm fortunate to sit on the same team as public affairs and government relations, and I've always worked close with corporate communications. Those two didn't necessarily talk all the time, and I think what's happening with regard to policy, both at the national and local levels, has been really important. And it has forced a renewed connection between those teams. And I think working together has allowed us to produce content that is factual, that can link to the appropriate policies in a timely manner. I think over time, those groups kind of moved away, and this has forced us to all work a little bit closer together, and has developed tremendous collaboration. And I think that can be said for marketing as well. I'd say over the last 6 months, and this started pre-COVID, but really looking at what marketing's doing at the national level, you know, for the general consumer. And applying that same tone and creative to our message, so that you're telling the full story. So I think that has been kind of a positive improvement in the way that we're communicating here. Challenging is not being in the office, because when things are moving as quickly as they are, especially in the world of retail, it's hard connecting with people. So I might be in the minority, but I can't wait to go back to work. So,
aren't you guys opening a nice brand new office soon too?
Yeah, but I think we'll be back in the old warehouse before we open that.
The old data center. Yeah. No, that's interesting. And Jamie, I think we're closing in on time here. I'd love just kind of like some of your final thoughts around things like this. You know, when we think about content, it goes beyond just the thought leadership article or the video, and it's beginning to extend into events and podcasts and virtual keynotes and things like that. I know that you guys spun up some webinars that were massive very, very quickly. What sort of learnings have you gotten from that? And then also, like, how do you measure some of those newer things that you're doing, and how do you kind of adjust and adapt?
Well, we learned that when your back's against the wall, you can do a lot of things.
I think we all have.
I think we've all learned that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We went during like the real thick of it. We were doing, I think, 3 webinars a week, which was a lot for us. Like, we were doing them, you know, ad hoc occasionally when something was newsworthy enough to put it out there, or we were doing, you know, an update or something. But we were doing 3 a week. And they were, as you said, they were pretty well attended. So we learned that when there's a there's an appetite for that type of thing, like you really have to think through what are the most appropriate content channels to try to meet that need. So, we're always out there publishing articles on our website, and we'll always continue to do that. And we send emails when there's things that we want to make sure people don't miss. But in situations like this, sometimes they need to hear a reassuring voice. They want to hear something in real time. And so to be out there and just being flexible to go out there into a different channel and explore how that's going to work for you and try to test and learn. That's been something that was really important for us.
Yeah, and Angela, you mentioned working with some new of the paid partners like T-Brand. I know you've had a partnership with them for a while, and in Bloomberg Green. Like, where do you see kind of pushing even further, or like what are some of the things that you're excited about tackling in the next couple of months?
Well, I would say that we've been really creative with video production. Obviously there's been some challenges regarding shooting on location, traveling, but we're rolling out a series now, which is called The Way We Work Now, which was kind of it's like a Zoomified video that T-Brand made for us, and I think it really works, and it sort of shows a different way of storytelling that is unexpected but super relevant, really timely. And I'm excited. We have a few things in the pipeline that I hope, fingers crossed, we'll be able to get into production into August and September. So
that's awesome. We'll look forward to seeing them for sure. And Paige, I guess finally, besides really wanting to be back in the office, what are you most excited about kind of getting back to, or kind of refocusing on in the next few months?
I think we have a lot, reopening America and how we do that and how we support the communities, particularly the small businesses that weren't operating during this time, how we support our associates and people, our customers that have been out of work. So I think we have a lot in the pipeline in those areas. So I'm excited to talk about those. Like you, Angela, I had a lot of sponsored content in the hopper. So I hope that some of that sees the light of day. My colleague and I that manage sponsored content, we've been trying to adjust and try to make some of those pieces more relevant. So I'm excited about that. And I also do political engagement. So I've got the conventions and elections to look forward to.
It's from the frying pan to the fire. Sure.
It's also hurricane season coming up, and that's always a challenge for us too.
Never a dull day at Walmart, that is for sure. Guys, thank you so much. I am so lucky to know you guys, and thank you for being very generous with your time. I hope the audience found this really helpful, and I truly can't wait to see you guys in person again. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.